I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com, and here today with me is Goldie, president of PDAC. Really good to have you here.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you so much for coming here and for having us here at the convention. We've made it to day 2, so I think it's safe to ask what your highlights have been so far.
Well, the highlights have been very much in the essence of the convention, because the convention is all about making connections. And we've introduced a new event called Coffee Connections. Every day at 8 o'clock, people who want to get caffeinated can come in and connect with other people. So the Coffee Connections and some of the other events that we've added, like new breakfast and lunch socials, they've all made it easier to make connections. And the exhibit floors are also very impressive. There's a real sense of, hey, we've got some good technology here when you look at the new geophysical instruments that are being made available to Canadian and in fact to the world, to find mineral deposits.
Yeah, there's always so much to do here, and it's wonderful that new events are being added every year. Definitely a lot of positivity on the show floor as well. I was all ready to ask you about Canada's mineral exploration tax credit, and because when we had emailed beforehand, this was kind of in limbo. We were waiting for that renewal, but now it sounds like the situation has already changed a little bit, and it looks like it's set to come through, although maybe some uncertainty around it still. But can you tell me where we're at?
Well, what we're advocating for is the mineral exploration tax credit is such an important part of funding for junior exploration companies that we made our top priority for this convention is to convince the government that it had to be renewed, because it was due to expire at the end of this month. And so we were delighted when the government announced yesterday that it intends to continue it for another 2 years, not in perpetuity that we're looking for, but still better than 0 years. And we're going to continue to advocate for this particular incentive to be made permanent.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 years is better than nothing at all. Very good to hear that. And, we were talking before we turned the camera on. It is a little bit of a delay here, though. Normally you would expect this to be discussed sooner. So any thoughts on why we did see that delay and hear about it this weekend?
Probably that with the Parliament prorogued, things happen slowly in Ottawa today, or these days.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and it is, in a way, it's nice to have it come up here, so it gives us a nice talking point. So we spoke here at PDAC last year, and you really emphasized Canada should focus not just on resource extraction, but also on the rest of the supply chain, and this is something, supply chain security, that's becoming increasingly important. So curious to know, have we seen much movement in this direction?
We have, but not enough. We've seen heightened industry interest in building domestic processing capacity, and exploration teams, process engineers, and governments have begun to collaborate more closely. And that's really a very important thing in supply chains, is that people responsible for each part of the supply chain talk to each other. You have to have exploration geologists talking to engineers. You have to have engineers and exploration geologists talking to the government. And that's starting, but we need a lot more.
And, on the note of supply chain security and uncertainty, there's a lot of volatility going on with this whole tariff situation, which I'm almost afraid to bring up because it seems to change so quickly. But any thoughts on how that could impact Canada's mining sector?
I'm smiling because it was just last week I heard that very question posed to the chair of a big mining company. And Mr. Chair, he was asked, Mr. Chair, what effects will tariffs have on your company? Or would you prefer to say there's too much uncertainty, as you say, or too much uncertainty for you to say at this point? And his answer was yes. And at PDAC, we recognize global markets are becoming increasingly volatile. We do advocate for strengthening Canada's position as a stable, responsible, and reliable supplier.
And also going back to another of our discussion points last year, you had made the point that owning mining stocks isn't really part of Canada's culture right now. And I wondered if this trade war talk could change that, because there's so much emphasis right now on, buying Canadian and that kind of thing. Yeah. Any thoughts there?
It could happen. I'm not inside the head of the average retail investor. I'm not sure that many people are, because it's very difficult for junior resource companies to raise money these days, and so that's the changes you mentioned may start to inspire people to say, I want to express my nationalism here, support Canada. I'm going to buy Canadian mining shares. The only advice I ever have for anyone buying any kind of share, but mining shares in particular, is don't just fall in love with one company. Hold half a dozen. A diversified portfolio is always a much better bet than a single stock.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice, and maybe wishful thinking on my part about that, but we'll see how that plays out.
I hope your wishful thinking comes true. It could.
Well, we'll cross our fingers. Now, if we come back around to PDAC, you've talked before about the organization's work getting young people interested in mining. And on the same note, I know companies are starting to have concerns about skills caps if more people don't come into the sector. So where does interest in mining currently stand among students versus, let's say, the recent past?
Well, we have PDAC, we have a student and early career program. It's designed to bridge the gap between companies who are looking for future talent and the talent going to university and not necessarily recognizing that the minerals industry offers a very exciting future. And the way I sometimes put it is that if you become an exploration geologist, you'll go places that Instagram has never been. And we've actually, this year, we extended that message to high school students. And one of the things we started was say, well, here's a cell phone, and look, it's important. This component came from the mine. This component, in fact, it almost all came from the mine. Not much interest. Cell phones are things you use. They're not things you pull apart and look at. But the high school students showed great interest in putting on the virtual reality headset and driving a scoop tram underground, or else dressing up in mining gear and being photographed to get a Polaroid to take home showing them looking like a miner. And that's certainly going to attract their interest. Hey, I look good as a miner. Maybe I should think about that as a career.
Yeah, I think it's important to find what interests people. Yeah, that's really good. So you're wrapping up your term as PDAC president. Very exciting. I wondered if there's any key accomplishments over the past couple of years that you want to talk about.
It was more than a couple of years, actually, Charlotte. It's actually an 8-year commitment. So if you want to be, and I'd certainly urge someone who was interested in becoming president of PDAC to follow that path. The 8-year path is you spend 4 years as a vice president and then 2 years as president. I'm nearly finished. And then for my next gig will be as the PDAC immediate past president, and I still have some responsibilities. But in terms of what I in particular accomplished, I think I learned a lot, mostly about PDAC, but also about myself. I turn out, for example, to be very good at drafting governance documents, and I learned that I'm even better at doing that when I work with a team of diverse people. And the documents that we created and the guidelines that we created, they're not only for us, they're also for specifying how future executives, directors, and committee chairs of PDAC, what they can do and how they should do it.
Yeah, very good. And good to point out that it's 8 years. I only see the president for 2 years at these events, but it's lots going on behind the scenes. And I was going to ask what's next for you, and now we know what indeed is next for you.
Oh, this is good. This is the part of the interview where I get to say I'll have more time for people to hire me as a consultant or director. And in my consulting business, I evaluate mineral royalties. And given that it's increasingly difficult to finance junior companies on the stock market, I hope I can increase the role of royalties in funding mineral exploration. So that's my future. And the PDAC's future is President Karen Rees. So she'll be sitting here next year, and you'll find that the PDAC is in very good hands with her.
Oh, very good. I'll look forward to that. And before I let you go, I know it's a busy time. We've got to get you back out on the show floor. Any final thoughts that you would share with investors?
Canada's mineral sector is a linchpin for economic resilience. It's essential in the global transition to clean energy. Investors must realize they're making an investment not only in a mining project, they're making an investment in Canada's ability to produce enough critical minerals to aid to facilitate the energy transition ahead of us.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for coming on to talk about the resource industry and what's going on at PDAC. Really good to have you.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Of course. And once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with investmoves.com, and this is Goldie of PDAC.